Okay, people are still trickling in, but we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Cara Ayala, and I'm a registered dietitian, certified personal trainer, and certified health coach with LifeStart. I've been a dietitian for about 7 years now, worked in the inpatient hospital setting for a few years, and then about 5 years ago started my journey with corporate wellness and have been there ever since. Today we will be talking about sleep and metabolism and how sleep can impact your metabolism. This topic is close to my heart because I studied this as my final senior project in college. So I've done a lot of work and research on this topic, and who doesn't love sleep? So some two good topics to talk about today. If you guys have questions along the way, go ahead and just type them into the chat box, and we can either stop along the way or answer them towards the end of the presentation. If you miss anything during this presentation, we are recording it and we will post it on our LifeStart YouTube channel, so you can always go back and refer to stuff later. So let's go ahead and get started here. Just an outline for today, we will be talking about the importance of sleep, the prevalence of obesity in our country, how sleep impacts metabolic function, mechanisms of sleep deprivation on obesity, nutrition for sleep, and helpful tools to increase sleep. So first, sleep is inherent action of that's necessary for daily function. Research shows that sleep duration that's either too long or too short can impact health in a variety of ways. So we kind of try to look at the research and find that sweet spot in terms of sleep and how that can provide the best health outcomes. It's an essential component of energy, tissue, and cognitive recovery. So especially for those of you who like to work out, recovering from your workouts, muscle recovery, tissue recovery, that's going to be happening while you are sleeping. So if you aren't seeing results that you're hoping for, maybe to take a look at, okay, is sleep being something that might be offsetting these results? Obviously it's involved in energy. I think we all know when we don't get enough sleep at night, our energy feels lower the next day. And then with that too, we get that cognitive recovery. So if we're not getting enough sleep, then we might find, oh man, I have that brain fog and I can't think straight. So all of those things can be impacted by sleep duration. And then in the United States and really in most places, we see that sleep is decreasing while rates of obesity are increasing. Not to say that that's the only factor involved, but could be a mechanism involved in that disease process. So here, if we look at the prevalence of obesity in the United States, it has doubled within the last couple of decades. Now, like I said, there are many reasons why, not just sleep, but some of these work together, and we can kind of use our knowledge to see what areas to tackle to help prevent this. It's estimated that 50% of adults will be obese by 2030, and 30% of children will be obese by 2030. And then here we're kind of getting more into the importance of sleep. So a lack of sleep can cause physical, chemical, and emotional changes within the body. I think we can all attest to that. It definitely can impact our mood, how efficient we are at work, our motivation levels. On nights that we get good night's sleeps, we might feel more motivated the next day than on nights that we don't get a lot of sleep. It can impact intelligence, memory, pain. That's a big one. So people with chronic pain, a lot of times report that they're having more pain on nights that they're not sleeping. But then we kind of get into the chicken and the egg, right? Is it pain makes it hard to sleep? So now you're struggling with pain, so it makes it hard to sleep. And then you feel more pain the next day. And then you kind of get into that cycle. It can also impact weight. Lack of sleep impacts exercise and diet. So when we look at research, it shows that people who chronically don't get enough sleep often go for higher calorie food items to provide that instant energy versus lower calorie, more healthful food items that might not provide that kind of instant blood sugar spike and that instant energy. And then of course, sleep and stress are deeply related. So it's a lot harder to manage stress if you're not having enough sleep at night. And then you can kind of see to the right here how all of these things can play in together. So we'll break things down into the stages of sleep. So REM sleep, this is a portion of your sleep that is involved with emotional problem solving, and it shuts off your stress response. Now, REM sleep is an extremely important component of sleep, and this is increased later during the sleep cycle. So let's say you have trouble with like waking up frequently during the night, or your sleep duration is very, very short, you're going to have less opportunities to get into this REM sleep, which is really where it's important to let that body shut off that stress response and get into that full relaxation. So something to think about if your sleep duration is shorter, or if you find yourself waking up multiple times throughout the night. Non-REM sleep, this is kind of right when you're going to sleep. This is light sleep, and there's an increase in your central spinal fluid for cleaning. It increases in the beginning stages of your sleep cycle. And then you can kind of see the number 2 and 3 and 4 sleep cycles after that. So each cycle, your sleep gets a little bit deeper. And then lastly, in the deepest sleep, that's when you find that your short-term memories become long-term storage. So that's where it's really important for more of the memory side of things. So now we'll kind of get into some of the health implications that are associated with lower sleep levels. So studies show that duration of sleep less than 6 hours is associated with an increased rate of hypertension. So a higher chance of having high blood pressure if you're not getting enough sleep at night. And the reason this is because it increases your sympathetic nervous system stimulation. So if remember back to the last slide, if you're going through that REM sleep, that's where it's really helping you shut off your sympathetic nervous system. And if you're not getting into that deep sleep because your sleep duration is too short, then it can cause overactivation of your sympathetic nervous system, which can cause hypertension. Cardiovascular mortality risk was increased to 110% for people with chronic sleep deprivation. So definitely can impact your risk factors for cardiovascular disease. And then the research shows that there's a risk for metabolic syndrome that's increased with people who slept either too much or too little. So that would be something having risk factors such as abdominal obesity, triglycerides, high triglycerides, high glucose levels. Those were all seen in people that had either too much or too little sleep duration. So kind of how all this is impacted together. So metabolic and endocrine systems are both altered as a result of short sleep duration. So when we talk about endocrine, that's really where we get into like our hormonal system. And then metabolic is kind of where we get into those hunger hormones. So when we look at sleep duration and short sleep duration, we see that leptin, which is a compound in the body that inhibits hunger, so it makes you feel full, that is decreased, while ghrelin, something that promotes hunger, so it makes you feel hungry, that's increased. So as you have lower sleep, we see that decrease in leptin and increase in ghrelin, and really those two things combined cause for an increase in appetite. So if you feel like, especially if you're trying to stick to a diet and then all of a sudden you get a couple nights in a row where you're not getting good sleep and all of a sudden your appetite is way up and you're kind of like, oh, what's up with this? I can't control my hunger. You kind of start blaming it on yourself. Well, there's actually things in your body that are controlling this. So don't be so hard on yourself during this. So there's a reason why you have an increased appetite when you have a short sleep duration. So your body's going to feel more hungry. When you do eat, it won't feel as full or satisfied for meals. So on nights that you don't get enough sleep, it's important to know that going into the next day so that you can think about how to properly fuel your body, and not necessarily think that something's wrong with you because all of a sudden your appetite is increased. Many study participants report that they have an increase in hunger, especially of that carbohydrate rich food. So when they looked at a study, they actually had people who were sleep deprived and not sleep deprived and sent them to a buffet. And they noted that people who had an hour less of sleep took in 300 extra calories at that buffet. And that's all due to kind of gravitating towards those carbohydrate rich foods and those foods that might provide that instant energy. So important to note, if you're not getting enough sleep at night, that might be something that you're craving and something that you're reaching for. And now we'll get into a little bit of sleep deprivation and glucose metabolism. So glucose is just how sugar is digested into your body. A decrease in sleep can increase your insulin resistance by as much as 40%. So basically, if your body doesn't want to allow insulin to let glucose from your blood into your cells, then that's going to cause the sugar in your blood to be a little bit higher. And so that's something to think about when we think about sleep duration, is how that can impact insulin resistance. And then also it kind of plays hand in hand. Lack of sleep can cause an increase in cortisol, and cortisol is a stress hormone. I think that we all have cortisol in our body, but the levels vary, right? So the more stressed we are, the more cortisol that we're going to have in our body. And the less you sleep, the more cortisol you're going to have in your body. So having a higher cortisol in your body increases glucose production. So now your body is producing more glucose. It's decreasing glucose uptake. So that's that insulin resistance. Your cells aren't pulling glucose out of the blood and into the cells. And ultimately, this can cause an increase in abdominal fat. It can elevate your heart rate and also elevate your blood pressure. So that's kind of how all of those work together. So now that we've kind of reviewed how all of these things can impact your metabolism, how much sleep do we really need? So studies show that less than 5 hours per night is associated with a higher body fat percentage in both women and men. Some studies show that more than 9 hours per night also increases body fat percentage. So like I said at the beginning of the presentation, it's really trying to find that sweet spot between not getting too much sleep and not having too little sleep. So current data suggests between 7 to 9 hours of sleep each night for adults. And this varies person to person. So some people might function really well off of 7 hours of sleep. For me, I know I need about 8 to 9 hours to really feel my best. So it really depends person to person, but you're trying to stay within that sweet spot. And now kind of getting into important factors for sleep. So there's natural circadian rhythms that our body goes through every day that causes sleep and wake cycles. So cortisol, that stress hormone that I talked about earlier, that is going to be higher in the morning and lower at night. So if you find that you're working late into the night and you're really stressed about the work that you're doing at night, your cortisol levels actually might be higher than they're supposed to be at night, which will in turn make it harder to fall asleep. So something to think about: can you shut off work earlier to help promote going to bed earlier? Or is there a family environment situation that's really stressing you out before bed, and is that increasing your cortisol? Can you do things like meditation to help lower that cortisol, taking a bath, reading a book, things like that to help get that cortisol lower at night and help promote better sleep? Body temperature is another one. So body temperature is going to be lower before bed and higher in the morning, and that's something else that prepares you for sleep. And then melatonin, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of it before, but that's actually a hormone in the body, and it increases with darkness and decreases when it's light. So that's kind of where we get the popularity of those blue light glasses and trying to turn off your electronics before bed, is because if you're constantly stimulated by this blue light and lightness, it's going to inhibit that melatonin from being able to increase at night when it's dark, which in turn will make it harder to sleep. So now kind of tying in nutrition to all of this. So there are certain nutrients that definitely help promote better sleep. So magnesium being one of them. Magnesium is also great for stress. So if you find that you're really stressed all the time and not sleeping very well, on top of that, then magnesium might be a nutrient to try to look into and see if you're having enough of it in your diet. So magnesium increases GABA, which is a neurotransmitter that decreases your nervous system. So as we talked about earlier, trying to decrease that stress response in that nervous system helps promote better sleep. So foods that can contain magnesium that would be good to include are things like almonds, cashews, dark chocolate, salmon, yogurt. So trying to have these things throughout the day and even before bedtime to help promote better sleep. Melatonin, so that's produced naturally in your body, but you can also get it through food sources. This causes drowsiness and decreases your body temperature to help prepare you for sleep. So things like cherries, bananas, raspberries, and flax seeds are all high in melatonin, so they're good things to eat before bed. Tryptophan, I think a lot of us have heard of that, especially around Thanksgiving time, and why they say turkey makes you tired. So tryptophan is used to make serotonin and melatonin in the body. So the feel-good hormone and kind of the hormone that helps you sleep. So things like turkey, eggs, cheese, and spinach are all things that contain tryptophan that would be important to include in your diet. And then vitamin D is necessary to convert that tryptophan to serotonin. So if you don't have enough vitamin D in your diet, which a lot of people are lower in their vitamin D levels, then the tryptophan won't be as active because they're unable to convert it to serotonin. So things like milk, mushrooms, salmon, eggs, sardines, yogurts, those are all important things to include in your diet. Or if you're out in California like me and it's 100 degrees outside, you could probably just spend 5 minutes outside and get enough vitamin D. So diet is very important when it comes to sleep for many reasons. One, to help promote you to go to bed with those calming foods that we talked about. Also things like chamomile tea, that can be kind of like that stress reliever at night, creating those rituals to help calm you before you go to bed. But then also certain things that you eat can help or can promote lack of sleep. So things that are high in fat, they're just harder to digest. And typically if you're digesting something, it's going to be harder to go to sleep. Spicy foods, those can cause like things like acid reflux. Same with the high fat foods can cause acid reflux. And that can make it harder to lay down and go to sleep. Caffeine, you really want to try to limit caffeine before bed because that's going to impact sleep. Alcohol, while some people say it helps them fall asleep, it doesn't necessarily help you get into that deep sleep stage where you're turning off your central nervous system. So yeah, it might feel like you're falling asleep easier, but you're not able to get into that really beneficial deep sleep. And then of course, excessive water intake if it's causing you to get up a lot during the night. And then what to do if you have a bad night's sleep. So like I said earlier, when they look at studies of people who have lack of sleep, typically people are going for those higher carbohydrate rich foods, things like donuts, candies, breads, bagels, things that kind of give instant energy. And while those things, if you're not having them all the time, are not necessarily bad to consume, it's probably better not to consume those on a day that you're really tired because your energy levels, your blood sugar levels are going to go up. You're going to feel really good. You're going to get that boosted energy. And then they're going to crash again. And that on top of being tired is probably going to lead you to want more of the candies, the cookies, the breads. So just trying to be careful with those food items that provide quick energy, trying to go more towards the foods that give you fuel. So fruits and vegetables, things that have a lot of fiber like legumes, whole grains, lean proteins, and trying to focus more on nutrient-rich foods on nights that you don't get enough sleep. And then really important one, I know I'm guilty of this when I don't get enough sleep, but trying not to drink extra caffeine to make up for your lack of sleep, because then that might just compound the problem the next night. So some tools to increase sleep duration. So limit the use of technology 1 hour before bed. There's a couple reasons why. One, we talked about that blue light getting into your eyes and inhibiting the production of the melatonin in your body. But also this using technology can increase our cortisol. We might think it's relaxing to scroll through Instagram, but it does cause a lot of stress that we're not really aware of. So trying to limit technology an hour before bed. You can always use blue light glasses or use your phone settings. A lot of phones nowadays have settings that you can turn to nighttime mode, which makes it more of like a brownish tint. Try limiting caffeine intake 6 hours before bedtime. Using your bed only for sleep. So if you are in the habit of like eating in bed or working in bed, especially like working in bed, you might associate your bed with like more stressful times, which can make it be harder to fall asleep and calm down when you are in bed. You want to try to set a schedule or a nighttime ritual. So like every night at a certain time, you start getting ready for bed. Maybe you take a bath, maybe you read for 5 minutes, you wash your face, you have some chamomile tea, and then you brush your teeth and you get in bed. Meditation can be another really beneficial way to help bring down that cortisol, help kind of relax you before bed. So apps like Headspace and Calm can be really good for those. Or you can always like look on YouTube for meditations. I know I use Peloton a lot, so Peloton has some great sleep meditations in their app that you can use. Try to limit alcohol, especially before bed. And then this is the hardest one, trying to go to bed and wake up at the same time every day, including weekends. So that will really help promote better sleep cycle. And then we look into quality sleep, right? Because, okay, maybe I was in bed for 8 hours last night, so check mark, I got a good night's sleep. But how was my sleep quality when I was actually in bed? So thinking about the time it takes to fall asleep, it should be less than 30 minutes. You want to try to wake up no more than 1 time per night, which if you are 28 weeks pregnant like me, it is very hard to not wake up more than 1 time per night. You should be awake for less than 20 minutes at night when you are awake. So if you are waking up at night, how easy is it for you to fall back asleep? And then if you do happen to wake up at night and you're awake for more than 20 minutes, don't stay in your bed, because then you kind of get into that. Now you're a little bit stressed because you're not able to fall back asleep, and you kind of create that stress within your bed. So it's better to get up, do something that makes you tired, and then try going back to sleep later. And then this can be super helpful just for monitoring your sleep pattern. So tracking how many hours of sleep you get each night, track what time you go to bed and what time you wake up, track how well rested you feel on a scale of 1 to 5, tracking how many times you woke up during the night and at what time. And then of course, tracking your stress level, your mood, and your hunger. So you can kind of see how all of these things play in together and monitor it over time. And then this, I just wanted to include this given kind of the scenario that we've been in recently with COVID-19, but this was a study published from UCSF Medical Center where they looked at sleep duration and your chance of catching a cold or a virus when you are exposed. So as you can see, people who had more than 7 hours of sleep were less likely to catch a virus or a cold than people who slept in less than 5 hours of sleep. So kind of think about how sleep, not only does it necessarily impact a lot of things that are going on in your body from a metabolic or an endocrine perspective, but also from an immune perspective, it definitely can have an impact on your health as well. Okay, and any questions? If you want to unmute yourself and shout your question out, that's great, or you can always type it in the chat box as well. Either or is fine with me. Hopefully I didn't make you guys all tired with this sleep presentation.
Does the quality of sleep play into this? So you have an uninterrupted period of time, say 7 hours, giving us some margin, but it's not a deep sleep. Does that affect the numbers we saw?
So it definitely does, and you want to try to get into those deeper sleeps. You can think about reasons why you might not be getting into those deeper sleeps. So one, are you only giving yourself that 7 hours, and maybe you need 9 hours so that you have more time to get into that REM sleep? Or two, are you waking up frequently to go to the bathroom or something like that, or eating like foods that might cause acid reflux? Or maybe you're waking up hungry because you're not eating enough before bedtime. So there's lots of different things that can kind of play into it, but definitely sleep quality will impact even if you are, say, in bed for those 7 hours.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and someone writes, she heard nuts were good for you. Yes, nuts are great for you for many reasons, but they also help promote good sleep, especially those almonds. Someone writes, why do I always wake up around 4 a.m.? I would suggest, if that's an issue, trying to keep a food journal or a sleep journal. So what time you're going to bed each night, what time obviously you're waking up. If you're waking up at 4 a.m., then if you're able to fall back asleep, how long it's taking you to fall back asleep, maybe what you're eating before bed, trying to look at kind of many different things that are going on that might impact why you're waking up around 4 a.m. If you are someone who, let's say, wakes up in the middle of the night or at 4 a.m. and now you can't sleep, so now you get on your phone or you turn on your TV, well, now you've just triggered your body to start producing melatonin at that time, or decreasing your melatonin production at that time. And so now maybe you're going to be doing that more often because your body thinks that, okay, now it's time to start decreasing my melatonin. I got light at this time, so now it's time to wake up. So try not to get on your phone or anything with blue lights if you are waking up at that time. Someone asked if you can get the slides. Yes, you can get the slides, and then the whole presentation will also be available on our LifeStart YouTube channel. Someone says, I've experienced sleep problems for over 20 years. I am right there with you. I love talking about sleep, but I'm not the best sleeper myself. That's why I'm so passionate and kind of researching sleep and looking into how I can sleep better. There are also other things that could be going on causing poor sleep. Things like sleep apnea is a big one. A lot of times people don't even know they have it. So if you are experiencing sleep issues on a more longer term basis, definitely check with your primary care physician to see if there's something else going on. Someone's asking if I think the Fitbit sleep app reflects accurate times. You know, I can't say for sure. I would say take all information with a grain of salt for things like that. And I know for me personally, sometimes seeing the results from the app can cause more anxiety about my sleep than just kind of going based off of how I feel. Do I feel well rested? Or do I feel really tired? So sometimes if you are someone that kind of overthinks things and sleep is a tough issue for you, I would recommend not to use the sleep apps and kind of follow those times on there. Any apps for sleep journal, not the actual sleeping data, because I keep my phone in the other room. I actually have not looked into any apps for a sleep journal. For me, I use the old-fashioned pen and paper, but I'll have to look into that and see if I can find a good sleep app. I'm sure there's one that exists. Someone's asking for males with enlarged prostate. Even with medication, it's hard to stay asleep because you have to get up to go to the bathroom in the night. Is that a problem? So no, not necessarily. Like I said, I'm getting up multiple times in the night as well currently. So it's really how long does it take you to fall back asleep? If you're finding that you're not able to fall back asleep after getting up in the middle of the night, then that's something I would look into. Someone said they conquered this issue in 2018 and now they're having the same issue again. They've had 4 sleep studies. So yeah, sometimes, I mean, our bodies are very unique, right? And there's going to be different times where our stress levels are impacted differently. Right now, I would say into 2020, I don't think anyone could say that it hasn't been a stressful year for them. It's been very stressful for everyone. So some of that might be playing into it and why it's kind of resurfacing. But yeah, I definitely trying sleep studies can be helpful to figure out the root cause. What are my thoughts on taking melatonin via pill form? Nothing, I don't necessarily say you shouldn't do it. It's generally safe to take melatonin. That being said, I would try to get it from food first and from blocking out blue lights. You want your body to be able to produce this naturally. And if you're feeding it in an outside form, then it's not kind of developing those patterns that will enable your body to produce it naturally. But definitely, like, occasionally, if you're having trouble sleeping, melatonin can be a good solution. Great questions, you guys. Any other questions? Okay, well, if you guys think of any other questions, feel free to email me. And then, like I said, these slides will be available on our LifeStart YouTube channel, so you can always check out the slides again if you have any other questions. And then I will, these should be posted, I would say within the next couple days. So if you guys are wanting to look back at it, just check our LifeStart YouTube channel. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for joining.